Gun is a gun simulator released in 2005 for the Xbox, Xbox 360, PlayStation 2, PC, GameCube, and then re-released in 2006 for the PSP. Yep, it's another shooter. Them's the breaks, but it's okay because this is another one that's actually good. It's a third-person Wild West shooter where Lola Bunny is a whore, Chucky is a reverend, Hellboy is a mayor, and the main character is the Punisher. Also, Nolan North is in there somewhere because why wouldn't he be? You play as Colton White, an Apache cowboy freshly orphaned from his adoptive father on a quest to discover his past and dispatch justice wherever it happens to cross his path. Along the way you get yourself caught up in the search for Quivira, a lost city of gold, and you have to round up the help of the friends you've made along the way to combat the enemies. It's everything you could ever hope for in a Wild West game. Cowboys, Indians, guns, booze, women, gold, and a revenge story to tie them all together. You've got your cast of creative characters filled with companions you'll actually like, and villains you'll actually hate. It's also chock full of historical references. As early as the beginning you see Coronado searching for Quivira before being brutally murdered by some Indians. Hoodoo Brown, J.J. Webb, Dave Rudabaugh, Clay Allison, Chavez E. Chavez, and most other main characters are all based on real-life counterparts filling fictitious roles. You've got Indians robbing stagecoaches, Chinese immigrants building railroads. Neversoft was keen on preserving historical accuracy over political correctness. As such, it's one of the more true-to-life Western games out there, which on its own I can appreciate. You'll be unsurprised to find out that the brunt of Gun's gameplay is the gunplay. Kind of like Red Dead Revolver, but better. You have a small armory of pistols, rifles, shotguns, and bows. Guns are acquired as the story progresses, although with a little cash you can have added functionality for a particular type of weapon. You can get money by mining gold or doing some other side missions like poker, bounty hunting, Pony Express, or ranching, all of which will also help raise your stats. Unfortunately, this being a console release, that means that the guns have an auto-aim. Played on actual consoles it's forgivable, but it still persists on the PC port. It's a bit jarring to have the game aim for you so obtrusively, but you'll eventually resign to the fact that this is a casual game, and force yourself to get used to it just this one time. So, 99% of Gun consists of you shooting things, riding horses, or both. Horses have a resilience meter for how much you can spur them before they die. Pistols have a slow-mo function which you can use to make fast and accurate shots. And your health is measured by how much whiskey you have in you. Most of the game is loud and upfront, but occasionally some more stealth-like missions pop up, which are usually very brief and easy to maneuver through. With such simple gameplay mechanics, it's up to the story to make sure that they last and feel good, and it does so swimmingly. Well-crafted characters, environments, and set pieces make every act unique and enjoyable. Gun is one of the few games out there that I feel blends the story and gameplay so extremely well. Not because of any of the gameplay mechanics are tied into the story, but because the pacing and arc all run incredibly smoothly. It's like actually being part of an old western movie or folktale. The whole world was fairly large for a game back then, with several shortcuts scattered about that you can use to get from place to place just a little bit quicker. I've always felt that if a game has fast travel, then that means that the world isn't interesting enough to travel through, which isn't always a bad thing, but Gun's world is exactly as big as it needs to be, even if most of it remains empty for a majority of the game. You can usually get from one area to another in less than a minute if you know where you're going. It helps keep the flow of the game more constant rather than breaking it up with teleportation. Gun is a very linear game story-wise. You can go from story point to story point back to back for the whole game if you want. The game world opens up to you very early on once you get the hell out of Dodge, after which you can choose to do side missions when they pop up as the story progresses. Everything is very tightly designed, but there are still some questionable decisions. A completion bonus in the form of a shotgun cannon and an invincible horse can be achieved after you beat the story and optional missions, but the lack of a New Game Plus or additional challenges renders them completely useless. Subpar completion bonus aside, all the story missions and optional missions are fantastic. You'll be taken all over the map, blasting your way through liars, thieves, and post-Confederate soldiers with a liberal reuse of enemy models. But this was the Wild West, there was a lot of inbreeding going on back then. The game is pretty short, only about 5 hours long, so you can blaze through it in an afternoon if you're so inclined. The game is solid fun throughout, sort of like Vanquish, although with a bit less replayability, given the decent but mediocre gunplay. Unlike Vanquish, though, I can absolutely recommend Gun for its story. If there's one thing this game does fail with, it's boss fights. Some of them you can easily hide behind cover and safely snipe, while others you can outright skip by walking to a door at the end. If you don't try to abuse those flaws, then for the most part, they're okay. Another low point would be some of the audio. Some lines are too quiet to be able to hear, and some sounds are bound to NPCs, so they'll often go quiet if you turn the camera away from them.
Don't get too comfy. They came from behind those hills. You need to ride over.
Oh, Hoodoo. Time to lay your cards on the table.
Maybe know more about me.
Gun was never an underrated gem. It received decent success and proved Neversoft was capable of making a great game that wasn't Tony Hawk's. Even though it didn't quite reach the sales figures of the Tony Hawk games, it helped push the boundaries for political correctness in video games with its accurate depiction of the American West during the era, and it's a shame that over the years has mostly gone under the radar. A sequel has been teased practically ever since the game was first released, even popping up after their merge with Infinity Ward, but after so much time and developmental shifts, if it ever does see the light of day, it may not be anything like what we had hoped for. Anyway, I digress. Gun is a great game, well designed, good characters with good voice performances, memorable soundtrack along with fun and varied gameplay. Short game, short review, it's definitely aged over the years, but Gun is a really fun game that's still worth playing even today.